welcome one and all to the Lyman Allen Art Museum virtually. We're here to celebrate the wonderful exhibition, Memories and Inspiration, the Carrie and C. Betty Davis collection of African American art. I wish all of us could be gathering under one roof tonight, but for just a little bit longer, we thought it'd be best to be safe. We'll give you this little appetizer online though, and to be sure, we're open to the public, we're safe, we're a great place, especially air conditioned in a nice hot summer too. So, you know, this will be the place to be for any number of reasons. Actually, there's a great virtue in our virtual opening tonight because we have the opportunity to have the pleasure of the company of the people who made this possible. And I'm of course referring here to Carrie and Betty Davis, who are up here virtually from Atlanta, and they might not be otherwise here. Welcome, welcome. So glad you're here. We are delighted to have them here. And as a director, it's my pleasure, always is my pleasure, to offer my thanks to everyone. And I'm going to start off with you, Carrie and Betty, for making this happen. Thank you so much. We are, of course, very indebted to a lot of different people. And I want to make a special call out to our registrar and director of exhibitions, Jane LeGros, ably assisted by our curator, Tanya Port, and our collections associate, Sydney O'Day-Ntiri, along with some help from our former friends who came back to help us, Lisa Simmons and Aaron Walker. You guys did a great job and I very much appreciate it. So thank you, thank you. I also want to express our gratitude to the Frank Loomis Palmer Foundation and an anonymous foundation based in New York, and of course to the state of Connecticut's Department of Economic and Community Development for the support, the very generous support of our exhibition program. I'll applaud to them too as well. Thank you so much. And behind us all here at the museum and making things tick is an extraordinary group of dedicated volunteer individuals, collectively known as the Board of Trustees. We're very grateful for all that you do to make us able to do what we do. Anyway, we are going to have a fun time tonight, I think. We have a great evening ahead of us. I hope you'll all agree once we're all finished. I'm pretty sure it's the case. We're going to start off with a little video walkthrough of the exhibition. And then we're going to follow that up with a number of still images of the works in the show. Not all of them, but you know, we have to get you to come in. We don't want to give everything away after all. But the real special part of the evening is going to be the fact that Carrie and Betty are going to be sharing some of the background about the artists and their work and how and why they were collecting them. So, and whatever else the spirit may move them to tell us about too. I think it's going to be good. We may also have a little bit of time at the end for some questions. And if you have a question you don't want to answer or pose right away, I suggest you use the chat machine and like just jot it down so we can try to incorporate it later on. So without further ado, I'm going to set up my screen and share it with you, and we'll give you a little bit of a view of the installation as it is now waiting for you to come on in and take a look. Let's see here. All I have to do is press that one there and press this one here. And here we go, folks. Okay, so that's the end of our video tour. And now if I can get a chance to make the PowerPoint come alive, I'm going to ask Carrie and Betty to unmute their microphones so they can give me a little direction. Welcome aboard, Captain.
Thank you, sir. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay, just want to make sure I was unmuted.
Who-
I want to thank you all. It's an honor to be at the Lyman Allen Museum. I think whoever made that possible, it's always been our hope, our desire for this. Once we found out we were touring this collection, that it would go into some communities that, it's seldom traveled, I guess I would say. And we are proud of that fact. I believe artists to be seen, and it's our pleasure that it can come to such a beautiful place as New London, Connecticut, and that beautiful museum of yours.
We are thrilled to have it here. Believe me, sir. This is, by the way, the Lyman Allen is the only museum in the Northeast where this wonderful show will be seen. It's on a tour. It's been out in Tulsa.
Yes.
And it's been down in Richmond, Virginia. And where is it? Down in Florida? It was in Ocala?
Ocala, Florida.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we feel very, very privileged to have it here. So I'm just going to start moving forward, and you're going to take a look at some of the stills of the galleries. You've already seen them. And as I mentioned before, we'll get a chance to take a look at the individual works of art, many of them anyway, not everything. You'll have to come and see this show. So here we go. Let's see here. I took a speed reading class one day, so I'll move right forward through this. So this is our lobby with a couple of these very large paintings. Now, I understand that your house is not a palace, so I don't know where you put these in.
Not at all. We have a storage issue going on around this camp.
I bet you do. Some of them are beautifully sized for the domestic setting, though. I imagine it's a real thrill to live with these things.
It is.
Yeah, the work just take on a totally different look in the museum when it's properly lit and well displayed and hung and thought out. Of course, we can't display it all at the same time, and I'm on the lazy side when it comes to rotating things in and out. But it's beautifully displayed.
It's we have rather intimate galleries, and it's nice to have them so full of so many great works of art. So I'm just going to keep on going through these, Carrie, until you tell me to stop, and then you tell me a little bit about anything you want to say.
Oh, well, I mean, you can pause right here. Well, either one.
Okay.
First and foremost, I would say, our collection is very personal to us in that I knew and know most of these artists, at least that lived in our lifetime. And most of my acquisitions were from the artists themselves. So it wasn't a lot of buying in the gallery or, the ones that are alive. Most of them are personal purchases in that respect. This is a Beverly Buchanan, and that I received from her. I forgot what year it was, but always a friend of her and her work. And this is kind of iconic for her. She would do these shacks. They would be in wood or this is a foam board shack with chair. And those little stars that are hanging, those are actually ornaments that she would make to go on a Christmas tree. Wow. That's really not a part of that sculpture, but I put it on there because I liked it, that way. I took some liberties in doing so. I hope I don't get sued.
It's sort of a participatory art,
right.
Like listening to jazz in a club.
I wanted to show my curatorial skills.
Right.
Charles White, one of the greatest draftsmen that I'd ever seen before. Of course, he passed away before I even started collecting art. But I love Charles White work because, well, he had a book entitled Images of Dignity, and just how he would portray African Americans with such a dignified, I've read some article where they call him the preacher. I could look at his work and it just preach a sermon to me, but just excellent. And we were so delighted. And I found that particular etching on eBay. That was one of my early eBay purchases. And, you know, when you're knowledgeable about art and certain images, you have an advantage, because a lot of times, you know, financially, we're not there to acquire certain things. But if it's at, you know, you find a work at some kind of obscure auction house or in a yard sale or in a flea market, and if you recognize what it is, you have, you know, an advantage, you know, maybe securing something like that. So you don't have those finds on eBay anymore because everybody else is out there watching now. And so the competition is great. You know, if you do see anything, it's just so great. But that's one of our most cherished pieces.
Understandably.
Claude Clark. His daughter is a very good friend of mine. I met Claude Clark. Claude Clark was a WPA period artist. I met Claude Clark years ago in Atlanta. He was at the National Black Arts Festival, and they used to have this artist market out in the Greenbrier area. Actually, it was the Greenbrier Mall, and in its inception, there were so many artists out there, and you know, it was fine art, craft art, a lot of different art. I remember reading this catalog. I have a monograph downstairs. I think it was the Negro in Art, Alain Locke. And in this book was published in 1940. And I thought that all the artists in there were deceased. And I was just walking through the mall, but I was very familiar with Claude Clark's work. And I saw a booth with his work there. And I walked over and I looked and I looked. I said, wow, original works by Claude Clark. And then this a little older fellow looked at me, looked down over his glasses. And I turned, I looked at him and he said, son, you look like you seen a ghost. And I thought Claude Clark was dead. I said, I think I do see a ghost. He laughed, we got the biggest laugh. Of course, I couldn't afford anything in there, but I did buy a $15 poster that he gladly signed for me. But, you know, we talked a long time about his work and just talked about, and I told him I was surprised to see him in Atlanta because I knew he lived in California at the time, or that was his last known address. But he told me about he had a daughter that lived in Atlanta, not far from where we were. And, you know, me being a postman, I know where everything is in Atlanta. So, and I met her, you know, maybe a year or so later and everything. And just show you how things can come full circle. Since that time, I couldn't afford anything. We now own 5 works by Claude Clark. Wow. And that's just one. I mean, one.
Well, that's a great story. This is a great work of art. It's got so much power to us.
Yeah. Chrissy. And that was the first work we got from Elizabeth Catlett. And I loved her lithographs, the earlier pieces, especially the black and white ones. I love black and white, and that's stone lithography. And there was a friend of mine who was an arts dealer, and she had that work. And if I remember correctly, she was telling me that she thought like a early self-portrait of Elizabeth Catlett. Now, I don't know how true that is, or maybe that was something to get me to buy it. I was hooked anyway on the Elizabeth Catlett work. But yeah, that was an early work in my collecting kind of career, so to speak.
Haunting it is. A real icon, this for sure.
Yeah, this is a work by Gordon Parks called Welders. It's just inspirational, women in the workplace. I acquired that. A good friend of mine, again, he was a framer, but art dealer that lived in Atlanta. On his passing, he passed that along to me. He knew I was a big fan. And again, black and white. I love black and white photography. Those silver gelatin photographs, they just look so nostalgic. Have a nostalgic feeling for me.
But there's so much life in there too. I mean, look
Yes.
at that one in the foreground. She's something else.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this one you told me a good story about. Huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is from the Builder series. And I have friends or acquaintances, and they'll see so much work around here, and they'll stop and say, what's your favorite work? What's your favorite piece? And I would always come back to this one, Builders number 8, or the Builder series. It's just a graphite pencil. It's a Cubist piece by Jacob Lawrence. I credit Jacob Lawrence with giving me the bug to start collecting. His work was so inspirational. He does a lot of narrative work. I tell a story about Harriet Tubman, the John Brown series, and just, he always explored working class people. And, that was me. So, that really resonated with me. And I had the opportunity to speak with him. And he very naive. I'd never had any art classes or anything like that. So everything I learned was from these artists, my friends, who educated me along the way. And I would ask, almost childlike question, well, why the hands so big? The feet so big. So, and he's simply saying, I'm trying to illustrate that these are working class people. These people came from some from the cotton fields, or doing hard labor to get to where they are today, or another generation of theirs to come forth. Also, what appealed to me is I was like my mother's handyman around the house, replacing the screen doors and doing whatever I can. And I trained as a carpenter when I left the Air Force. It might have lasted a couple of years, and then the post office just had better benefits than that carpenters union that I was working for. And I would ask the question about, I look at the top of his hat, it looking square or rectangle. Then I start notice the different shapes. And he explained to me about cubism. And I could relate it. I can see things. And he talked about Picasso, cubistic movement, and how how he would depict African art in a one-dimensional way. And so it gave me more insight. I started looking at art differently. And again, Jacob Lawrence kind of brought things home for me. And so after my mother passed away, each of the children got just a couple of dollars. There was 6 of us. I had to put a little bit more with it, but I was convinced to buy something that I would really enjoy. But it always reminded me of my mother and our relationship. and things I like to do. So this piece would always be the piece that I would always go back and say, this is my favorite work. It means more to me. Now, I love the other ones, but this would be, if I had to walk out of here with one work, this would be that work.
And as you said, it's simple. It's just graphite. It's just with a number 2 pencil, right? And look at what he did. Amazing, amazing. Well, I'm going to move on to the next one here. Another black and white one. Not graphite though. This is a woodcut.
Oh, this is a woodcut, and Betty actually gave me this, or presented this to me on one of our anniversaries. So nice. I don't go out and buy many things she's a buyer. Other than Home Depot and some art gallery, I don't frequent stores or do much buying, but she could probably share something with you about this particular piece right here.
Well, it was our anniversary, and I know Kerry, he likes a certain style, and fortunately, I was connected to this artist. One of my friends was her father was his daughter was a girlfriend, and so I was connected to it, and I said, I know Kerry would love this piece, so I surprised him with it, and sure enough, this is one of his. I think is another favorite, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, James. I say Lesnar Wells. I think she said Lee's in, but was a Harlem Renaissance artist and painter. Worked at Howard University for many years and taught others. But he was another that I studied or recognized. Here in Atlanta, I had the benefit of going up to Clark Atlanta University, who has a huge African-American art collection. And I would visit them often and see the under-recognized artists who, well, they're not so under-recognized today, but, back in the 80s, they were. And those were the artists that I got so much inspiration from, and the work was so beautiful. But if I could find those works, those were the artists that I would seek after to collect.
We're glad you did.
Oh, I guess I could speak to this one too.
Good. Go for it.
This is The Postman. It's an assemblage by Larry Walker. Larry Walker is the father of Kara Walker, famous artist as well. And when I retired from the post office, Larry's a good friend, retired from the post office, I gave Larry some things. In fact, a couple of artists had given me some mementos from my postal career. And so I just gave him some things, and I thought Larry, known for these wall series, these shadows on the wall and this kind of thing. And I just got excited because I didn't know what Larry would do with this material. And he told me he was done and finished. And I went to pick it up, and he showed it to me. And I had mixed emotions about it. I said, as a joke, I used to call it the scarecrow because I brought it home and assembled it and put it in the little room where we have flat file and things. And I didn't say anything about it. I just set it up and just see what the reaction would be. And one day I was upstairs and I heard this scream. I heard Betty just screaming. And I come down the stairs. She said, "Somebody is in the house. Somebody is in the house." And thus it got that name, the Scarecrow Crane. But afterwards, I've grown to appreciate it a great deal, especially when we were out in Oklahoma, and they have a very large Native American population. And we were talking about the totem. Larry did these series, these totem works. And they came up and just the conversation with some of them. And, it's amazing how people see our art is so subjective. What I see, you may not see, or what you see, I may not see, but their interpretation of the stories they have are just wonderful. Just wonderful to see how they view an item. And so, you know, I'm grateful, but it is the conversation piece, because when the kids come by the house or people come, they always get a kick out of it. Everybody always get a kick out of it, and they always have a comment on it. So you can see, but if you
we're really glad that it's part of the show, because it brings your presence right here into your very personal connection here. That's great.
So, you know, you look at the body of it. I know back in the day, if in the lobby of the post office, they had these FBI wanted posters that adorn the lobby of the post office. You see it in there, and then you'll see my first ID badge hanging around my neck with a fellow with hair and all that kind of stuff, and that's long gone. That's long, long gone. That's a work by Lois Mailou Jones. It's a watercolors. I think that was from 1950. So it's early when she was there, Saint Michel, France. I actually got that from her. It was her students. A student had some works that she was doing, and you know, it was just something about this, that sky looked ominous or something. I think that is a church with this long walkway that goes up to the church. You know, church is supposed to be a happy, a happy and rejoicing place to go to. But that's something very mystical about that.
And the perspective is very unusual too. If you think it is all the way up, but it looks
and how you looking down and you looking toward it. But it's very, very nice work. Very, very nice work. Mickey D's. Yeah. This is by Michael Ellison. He was a good friend. Died at an early age. We went to high school. We went to the same high school. He was some years ahead of me. But in the 80s, this was a typical, this is Mickey D's, and that's just our slang for McDonald's restaurant. And you look to the right of this, well, you can't see me, but there's the golden arches on the right, looking out of the window in the restaurant. And then to the very left, where you see the little ceiling fan, that's the grill area where they're flipping the burgers back there, and then the food court in the center shot. But this is excellently done. I don't know how many colors this is, but he's a very, very talented guy.
Indeed. Speaking of talented guys.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Romare Bearden. When I started collecting art, the first two names I even knew about or heard about was Jacob Lawrence and Romare Bearden. And for the most part, I guess because they were the only ones in the forefront, or in that I would see any kind of publicity about or like that. So I would always say we started at the top.
Sure.
But we had opportunity at the time. I had a cousin who collected work up in New York, and he knew Bearden personally. And I found out about this. He showed me this work that was available, and it's a monoprint or a monotype. And that's where the artist would take a plexiglass plate or use it as a plate. And in this case, with the oil paint, he did the images. You have to work very quickly because it will dry on you. And that's why you work quickly, and it's very loose, and you lay your print, and you pull it up in mono, meaning one. You won't get that same image if you try to pull it again. You get even a more watered down version to some mess, I guess, if you just continue to try to do it. But, you know, Bearden had you know, a heavy jazz influence. And I too like music very much. So this was a great piece for us, for me. Very proud to have it, you know, very appreciative.
Beauty. Another real beauty.
Sam Gilliam. Just an explosion of color. We were up in the DC area and doing some work. Now, I was working with Betty. I hadn't retired from the post office yet, but we were up there. And a friend of mine said, hey, look, you want to go by Sam Gilliam's studio? I said, oh, absolutely. And he was so kind. He invited us in and he let us walk around and, you know, we talked. And, you know, again, most of the artists, I've read so much about them. I can probably tell him when he graduated elementary school or something. But I was so engaged in his work, and he let us rummage his flat files, you know, and I'm like a kid in a candy store when you do that. And, you know, and on the walls, he had all of these, the Drake paintings that he's known for. But he allowed us to have this work right here. And before we left, he had given us a couple of prints as well. But this was my favorite that we have. This is my favorite of Sam Gilliam's work that we have. And it'll always remind me of his kindness, his generosity, you know, considering the stature of who he is and the beautiful work that he does, and that he thought enough of us to, you know, afford us this work right here.
Well, I think he made a good move by doing that, and we're very grateful for it too.
Oh, well, we love to share it. Smell of Lewis. Had the opportunity to go, well, I've met Smell of Lewis on a few occasions, but I was out in Los Angeles and had a chance to just sit down in her home. We sat in her living room for a couple of hours and we just talked art, She's one of the, I think she and David Driscoll are the foremost, in my mind, African-American art historians who did so much to advance the works of African-American artists. And just to sit down and be fed, you know, just listening to her stories, how she make all the relationships, you know, come alive, and all the artists that she's known and helped show their works. I think that's the only, we may have another Samela Lewis work, but that was just a powerful image for me as well. And to, you know, just to be around her and, like I say, pick her brain, and it reminded me of my visit to Los Angeles in her living room. Wow. This is another special, you know, and I'll keep saying that because they all special. You know, pretty special. Yeah. But the first time, this is Cedric Huckabee, and the first time I saw his work was here in Atlanta at the Hammond's House Museum. And I went over with another friend, Ron Adams, who has a work in the show. And, you know, we walk in and I'm like, oh, wow, here's a textile show. We go in to see, you know, some fabric, something. And these huge, I thought was quilts hanging on the wall. And the closer I got to them, I say, that's not fabric, that's an oil painting. And it was so real, so lifelike. You could even see the texture and the patterns. And immediately it took me, when we were growing up, where as kids, you know, in church, there were ladies in the church who did quilts, who made quilts, sewed quilts. And like I said, I come from a family of 6. We never had really art in our house or anything like that. But, you know, and the kids, you know, in family of six, I was the youngest boy. There was my daughter, my sister came after me some years later. But, you know, we had hand-me-downs, and we wore clothes until you couldn't wear them anymore. And my mother, we would sit down and have one of those old brown grocery store bags. And my mother would take the scissors and just cut strips, denim or whatever. And whenever we fill the bag up, we'll take it to church. And then you just hand it over to one of the ladies, or they say the sisters in the church. But whenever my mother would have a child, they would present that child with a quilt. And, you know, I think about African art, or we call it African art, but it was more of a utility in that those things that we call art, those were items that they used. And us, you know, there was no different. We used to use those quilts. They were heavy, but you know, in the winter, you know, we didn't see it as an art form then. And though I always thought they were very attractive, that was something that would tuck you in the winter days, you know. And so I had opportunity to meet, actually the director over at the museum put me in touch with Cedric. And we talked and we shared, and you know, he and his wife are so lovely people, you know, pretty spiritual people, they, you know, close to the church themselves. And we just had so much in common. And he did this piece especially for me. And just by talking to me and getting the feel of me. And I had seen some of his kind of portrait work, which I liked as well. And he just saved me the trouble of buying two works of art where he combined the two. And I thought that this was so appropriate for this exhibition. It encapsulates the title, Memories and Inspiration for me. The young lady looks pensive, and you're looking at her from, you know, her rear, but you could see her deep in thought, like, I remember, hey, this is in my mind now. I remember the time when we did this, and I remember. And, you know, and I just get so inspired by those longings of just a younger, honest time, an innocent time, I guess. And, you know, and just being so young, but you feel secure. You hadn't been exposed to all of what's going on in the world. And that quilt protected me, you know, through it all. So again, one of our very favorites. I love that piece every time I see it.
Yeah, it's a great piece. We're so privileged.
Joanne by the window. Back again, black and white. You know, you're just looking at some of my favorite, you know, work. I love those silver gelatin prints. They have a somewhat of a nostalgic feel for me. Mr. Anderson, great, you know, I thought great photography. He captured a lot of the Southern rural scenes, you know, people he knew. I had the privilege of taking Mr. Anderson on photo shoots at times. And, you know, none of these scenes are staged. These are, it is what it is, shots, you know. And I think this too could have been a great piece as a narrative for the show, Memories and Inspiration. How she take, you know, this gaze, she just look out the window. Sad thing about this, when I see this photograph, I kind of have mixed emotion because Mr. Anderson was so excited that this photograph would be touring across the country in this exhibition, but he didn't live to see it. Now he got just as excited when he signed off on the consent copyright form that, you know, they could use the images to do what they do. But he didn't get a chance to see it himself. But I know he's pleased, you know, I know he's pleased. Yashir Kloss. This is a #2 graphite pencil. I love a great draftsman. I love a great draftsman. And Yeshua was and he was still in school when he did this. And actually, yeah, if it's 2003, that's when I got it because it was fresh. I bought a couple of pieces from him. And, you know, I was always tell, you know, when asked, of course, you know, we have to support our young artists, you know, and plus, who can afford a Jacob Lawrence or an Elizabeth Catlett now? I mean, I can, well, really, but you maybe somebody else can, but there's a lot of talented artists that's out there, and they need support as well. Now he's doing very well right now. So, you know, if you look at work and you discern what you think good work, it, like they say, cream will rise to the top. So it's good work.
And you had the courage of your convictions to buy what you knew was good. So
yeah, well, you know, I never had anybody in my ear trying to tell me what was good or what was bad or what I should buy or what I was always alone in a crowd. And I just sought this journey by myself, you know.
Well, thank you for bringing us along.
Wadsworth Gerald, who's an Afro-Cobra artist, they are very, I mean, those type works in that group of artists is coming to the forefront again. This is not one of those type pieces. He had a huge, you know, music, jazz influence, and this is his style, his colors. And he lived in Atlanta for quite some time. He's retired to Cleveland now. I shouldn't say retired. I think he may be still painting, but he's 90 years old now. But in excellent health last time I saw him, which was last year. And this is a piece called Blue Lou. Lou refers to Lou Rawls, the crooner. This guy in the forefront with this kind of mohawk looking hairdo up there. And that's that little silver thing, that's a microphone in front of him. John T. Reynolds, who's a friend of mine, lived in Atlanta for about 13 years. He came to Atlanta from Los Angeles and kind of retired and went back to Los Angeles before he passed away. But this is called Stained Glass Windows. This is referring to the church bombing. And what part of Alabama? It was either Birmingham, Montgomery. That just escapes me. I have to go back and look at it. But it might have been Dexter Street Baptist Church. Well, anyway, the bombing of the church where the 4 girls were killed. And you see the hinge on the right corner. And in the newspaper, the print, someone was quoted as saying, you know, I can still see those children's faces in the window. And that inspired this particular work from the 1963 bombing in Alabama of the church. Last chocolate ice cream. He's looking at that ice cream like, just ecstasy. I remember growing up as a kid in Georgia, August was so hot. The ice cream man was our savior. And if you could get a chocolate ice cream, you hit the jackpot. So I don't know so much as this guy looking at his last chocolate ice cream say, I'm gonna save this one for myself, or this is the last one and I can go home and get some rest. But looking in this painting, you know, you just look back and you just even look at the heavens and say, it's all good. It's all good. Palmer Hayden, the janitor that painted. Palmer Hayden had several jobs, you know, growing up. This piece was in La Grande Bay, France in the 30s. Some of the African-American art went to Paris because they just had more freedom, they felt, to paint and paint any way, you know, they wanted to. And most of Palmer Hayden's work would be something very figurative, a very, I don't know what you call it, very ethnic, you know, the thick lips and these African features. But this was just very different, and for me to find this, I mean, there are several other works in this style, but I had the opportunity to buy a Palmer Hayden painting, another who I read so much about, you know, early on, and it became available. And it's the only seascape that we have, so to speak. You see the two little Frenchmen looking out over at the sailboats and the rock formation. For me at that time, it's just an interesting painting to see and to have. So we have it.
It's beautiful. It's so different from the other ones that you've got too. It really is. I'm just going to keep on pushing a little bit because unfortunately, as interesting as all this is, that clock is tick, tick, tock.
You know what? Well, you could move on. I mean, you could. Right. I don't have to tell you about everything. Yeah, this is part.
You need to tell us about this. This is
Larry Walker wall series, and how he attached something. Truth be told, I don't know what's all going on in there. He added. But his wall series, you'll see, usually I see shadows and bill postings and things from the urban. And I think that's a rose that's at the bottom of that hanging down. But, you can be the judge of it. You have it now, so you take a look and you tell me.
Right. We'll tell you. Oops. Boy, that's a heavy load.
We stuck. Stephanie Jackson, The Exodus. That's James Old Jesse's Legacy, James McMillan. This is about Stephanie Jackson, Exodus.
There we go, back and forth here.
Yeah, this is good. Let's just. Okay.
We'll go there.
Okay, this is Old Jesse.
Yeah, you can stay there. Talk about that one.
Okay, we'll talk. Okay, this is The Exodus. This is from the Katrina series. And if you go down in New Orleans, of course, on Bourbon Street, you look up, you can see all the balconies around. And during Katrina, when that ward flooded out down there, these are people, waiting, begging to be rescued. And she entitled it Exodus, The Exodus.
It's a centerpiece of the center gallery there. It's quite a strong piece of work.
This Hale Woodruff piece, The Jesters, and he would send these little silk screens to his friends, like during Christmas, as a as a thank you or a greeting. And generally they'll have a note attached to it, salutations, whatever.
Here's a case where size really matters. On the screen, they both look about the same size, but in fact, this is a very small card-like thing. You can put this in an envelope, whereas the Exodus is a good 5 feet wide or something like that.
Yeah, this is Kevin Cole. This is a Kevin Cole. If you look closely, it's a necktie actually, and generally that's what he does in all type configuration. Though it looks like a African headdress,
sure does.
Of something which represents his heritage. And Kevin would tell me about his grandfather, who out in Arkansas had brought him out to this field where this huge oak tree was. And basically the story was about him, the importance of voting. And he was telling about the young man who was hung by his necktie from that oak tree. and that if he did not vote, this man's life would have been lived in vain. So, you know, to this day, you know, he tell that story. And then if you look in, there's another work in the exhibition, and it's actually a work on paper. But if you see it, it'll all come together. Those are neckties. Right. And that's the symbolization behind his work. Waterfront, 1950, oil on canvas. Richard Dempsey, at the time, this was in San Francisco, but he later moved to the Washington, D.C. area. One of my visits, one of my many visits to Clark Atlanta's collection, they have a piece like this, done like this, the palette and the color, 1951, of like a church choir, interior church scene. But that's how I became familiar with Richard Dempsey's work. And I bought this at auction out at Bonhams and Bonham, used to be Butterfield and Butterfield, but I think it's Bonham and Bonham now. And I credit that for being able to see that work at Clark Atlanta. I was saying earlier, I purchased that for $168. And that, you know, just kind of go to show you how the work's just so unrecognized. And if you get out into some auction houses, they don't know what it is, or you don't have much competition bidding against, you could have some find. Again, those finds aren't there anymore. People are all over the place scouring auction houses and everywhere for African-American work. Is starting to come strong at the market now.
Another example of how knowledge is power there. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm afraid we're going to have to move a little faster at this point, but you got to tell people about this Carey's painting. You say, that's it.
Yeah, Carey's painting is a good friend of mine, 30-year friend, artist, Freddie Stiles. He would do these small studies of works, and he would always get my opinion on the works. And that was so me, because those are Carey colors. Those colors make me happy. You know, that's the place I could come to at home and relax. And I made such a thing over this particular work over the others. And that I tell him, hey, it's complete. Don't do anything else to it. It's complete. And so he did. He made a series out of it. And during that time, that series was one of his most popular series, in that he sold quite a bit of that work. And so, of course, he donated one to me. And usually his works are untitled, but since I carried on, so he entitled this Carey's painting.
Okay.
Just seems appropriate, you know. They should give it to you with a name.
Mo Brooker, the seventh son of the seventh son. Mo Brooker, father was a minister. And I love his work. I love his talent. He's really heavily influenced by jazz. If you see him in the studio, he's singing and bopping and music as he's going. So it's so improvisational. And he was telling me again, I call them happy colors. In Korea, he was telling me about at the Korean funeral, how people are such celebratory. It's different, you know, and you know, he was telling me about this conversation he had with his father, who's a minister, and he couldn't understand why, if you know, we look at the home going, it should be a celebratory thing, but generally in our churches, there's a lot of weeping, mourning, you know. So he present these happy colors. So with all these stories in my head, they just kind of reinforce how I feel about certain things. I can look at artwork, but the artist can really articulate what I feel or what I see. They can explain, you know, articulate how I feel about something. I say, oh yeah, well, that's why I like it. So that makes sense to me, you know.
Excellent. Oh, I think this is coming to the last piece, I think.
Okay. Well,
but then again, quite a piece, huh?
Yeah, well, this is a great friend of mine, very close friend, Mildred Thompson, who was a very talented artist in every sense of the word. I met Mildred as a musician, but she was also a poet, photographer, and a writer. Professor. Yeah, teacher, professor, writer, very much so, very much so. She's an abstract artist I thought was before her time. Work wasn't as really appreciated, not by the masses. She died in 2003, I think. And now the work has been rediscovered. And the Lalonde Gallery in New York has the estate. And I just wish she was here to see the success that she always knew that it would bring. But yeah, good times.
Unfortunately, in that regard, she's got a lot of company in the world of artists. You know, people are only discovered at the end. Well, you've really been helpful in giving us a little inside track on all of this work, and I just can't thank you enough for it. I want to make a little commercial, if I may. We've got 2 other evenings associated with this show coming up in the near future. On Wednesday, June 9th, that's a Wednesday, at 6 p.m., we're going to have another Zoom event. This time it'll be a lecture by Professor David Canton, who used to teach history up at the Connecticut College, but now he's recently been appointed the Director of African American Studies at University of Florida. So he'll be joining us on Zoom to give a little historical and societal context to this collection and to African American art in general. And then in the next month, July 14th, also Wednesday at 6 p.m., we'll be hosting Dr. Amalia Amaki, who is herself a practicing artist and art historian. And she will tell us stories about making art and talking about art. You can check into our website as those dates come closer for the possibility of getting a link to join us for those events. And I just hope that everybody will have or take the opportunity to make it on down here to the museum to enjoy this show in person. We are going to be opening this summer during this show by waiving admission. We would like everybody to come in and see this and other shows that we'll have on view at the same time. You can also check our website on that when we actually do start that new program. I think it's going to start in early June, but we've got a grant that we're working on that's going to take care of that, but will shortly be open for free. I know that I promised that we'd have a chance to do a little bit of Q&A, but I dare say that Harry has answered all of our questions already anyway. So I'll just close by extending a strong and warm thank you, Carrie and Betty, for helping us out tonight. And I look forward to seeing you up here sometime soon. And I look forward to everybody else in the audience to coming down to visit the museum. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And we'll see you online and in the galleries, I hope soon. All right, folks, have a great weekend.
Thank you.
You too.
Take care.